Can advertising be both effective and creative? Well, it's an old debate, but one that has increasing currency, I'd suggest to you, in a budget-squeezed marketing environment. We're going to go in-depth with some heavy hitters on this week's Mags on Media. We'll also talk to a leading research company about its digital predictions for 2013. Must-see stuff if you're selling stuff. First up this week, it's a real no-brainer. Brands have to be more visible in the digital space, but mass confusion, I would suggest to you, still reigns. Seriously, how important is Twitter? Can it really help sell cars? And can a brand campaign survive on mobile alone? Let's try and make some sense of this very important debate. Joining us is Monique Leach, who's Director of Digital Solutions at the agency in Millwood Brown. Welcome, it's good to talk to you. The first point that you make in this list of trends for 2013, you're fairly bullish about the monetization of Facebook. Some, Monique, would say, finally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Facebook's really been struggling to monetize their brand and show value for it. And we think that the types of news feeds that you'll see towards the end of this year are going to be very different from last year. Facebook's likely to give brands and advertisers far more leeway in the types of things that they'll be chatting to consumers about. So absolutely, we see that that's going to change quite a bit.
So how should brands then be rising to that challenge?
I think for brands, it's going to be a very fine line to tread. Mobile is something that's so personal to consumers, and added social networking on top of that, you have a very personalized space. So brands are going to have to be very careful on the types of messages and the content that they deliver to consumers.
In fact, you make the point when it comes to social media, and I made the facetious remark about Twitter selling cars.
Yes.
But you say that social media evolves from something you say is called grab and go to meaningful insight. But I would say to you that meaningful insight should be a bedrock anyway. It should always be there.
Absolutely, it should be a bedrock. I think in digital, we haven't quite evolved to the insight or types of insight that we have for above the line traditional media channels. And the reason for that is because there's just so much data available in the digital space. You're looking at things like impressions and likes and click-through rates. And where marketing really needs to evolve to is looking at how to combine all those metrics and understand what value that offers on the brand. Is it driving brand affinity? Is it driving consideration? Is it driving sales? And what is the impact of that? We're not quite there yet, but we think that this year is definitely the year that will be moving towards that space.
Now, there is nothing more irritating than seeing a group of young consumers, particularly glued to their mobile devices. You rightly observe that mobile devices become, to quote you, remote controls for our lives. We accept that. Again, how do brands need to get into that space without becoming too intrusive, because then it's a turn-off, but also making sure that they optimize the space that they've been given?
I think that that also depends on your understanding of mobile. Consumers are so connected across so many devices.
This is the thing you call omni-channel marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of screens. You're very connected, but mobile is really at the heart or the core of that. And what we find a lot of brands and marketers still doing is looking at digital channels and above-the-line channels in very much isolation, so little compartments, and designing creative strategy that goes into these little compartments. For this year, it really is about integrated marketing and understanding how consumers use their mobile phone.
In other words, finding the seamless thread.
Absolutely.
I have found very few brands that have done that successfully.
Very few, very few. One of them is ZBox. It's a UK company, and it's a social media channel where you can watch your actual TV program on TV, and at the same time on your mobile you can connect with all your friends, find out what they're saying, what they think about the program, and that's really understanding how consumers use their phone and tapping into not the channel itself but rather the consumer behavior.
Right, once you understand that, you also make the point about social TV will be part of the narrative rather than a conversation about the narrative. I think what you're trying to say here is effectively whatever you do, you've still got to pay homage. You've got to understand that content is critical here.
Content is king. It's not just about broadcasting a whole bunch of information. It's really about quality content.
It's authentic content.
Absolutely.
Because these days we also understand the power of the narrative, but we can also see through the rubbish, can't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You really need to think about not just the channels strategically anymore, but it's so focused around the consumer behavior and understanding how consumers interact with those channels.
Consumers don't see boundaries.
No.
Agencies and brands see boundaries. I think this, for me, is perhaps the most fascinating one. Industry players will collaborate to provide actionable in-campaign insight. So it's brands working with each other, but it takes a brave brand or agency to do that.
Absolutely. I think that's the utopia of fantastic, the advertising. Because digital is so instantaneous and consumers really want that instantaneous feedback, I think it is going to become a big trend where you find that creatives, media planners, brands, research houses all work together to optimize that content as it's running. So I think we'll learn as we go, and you'll never be able to draw a line in the sand and go, I know everything there is to possibly know. You will have to adapt or die.
Appreciate the insight. So some stuff for us to digest there. We'd like your views on the importance of mobile marketing, the digital space, all on our Facebook page on the address that is on your screen. Coming up on the program, can advertising be both effective and creative? The big Mags on Media debate.